Hi, I'm Giles Roebuck, and welcome to my Talking Guitar podcast with Chuck Leavell, who was with the Rolling Stones in 1994 at the time this interview was done. The night before this interview, Keith Richards had invited me to attend the Rolling Stones rehearsals, which took place in the gymnasium of the Crescent School in Toronto, which they had rented during June 1994 to rehearse for their upcoming Voodoo Lounge World Tour. Throughout the night, I noticed that very often Mick and Keith would turn towards Chuck to have him remind them about how some of their vintage songs went. They'd be playing a song and Mick would go, "How does that bridge go?" And everybody would turn to Chuck and he'd play it on the piano and instruct the members of the band. So in essence, he was kind of the ad hoc musical director during the rehearsals. I always admired Chuck's playing. He was a member of the Allman Brothers band in the mid-'70s, and then he had a band called Sea Level, and he's done a tremendous amount of studio work. He's a very, very good player coming out of the Southern rock tradition. I found Chuck to be really articulate and personable during our interview, and we began by discussing his predecessor, Ian Stewart, who was one of the founders of the Rolling Stones. We talked about Bill Wyman's approach to the bass as compared to Daryl Jones, who had only recently joined the Rolling Stones. Chuck gave me some interesting insights on why Charlie Watts has such a distinctive sound. He talked about how Keith and Mick approach songwriting and piano playing. And naturally, we delved into Chuck's role with the Rolling Stones, both in rehearsals and while they're on tour. As I said, he often serves as the band's unofficial musical director. So interesting insights abound. I hope you enjoy this conversation.
How'd you land this job?
I've had it for a long time, since 1982, you know. I came in when Ian Stewart was still alive, and I think probably Stu was one of the main reasons I got the job. You know, we got on really well, and he, of course, had influence with the band at that time, and so we worked together, and that was the European tour in '82 that I first stepped in. And since then, I've done, you know, virtually everything the band's done. I've done there's been 5 records, and the Steel Wheels tour. I've done solo work with Mick, with Keith, and with Ronnie.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when Stu passed away, I guess my role expanded a bit because his contribution to the band was, as you know, most of the rock and roll, boogie-woogie type piano playing through the years.
Yeah.
So, you know, my gig at that time was a support role, and then when Stu passed, it became more than that.
In my interview with Keith yesterday, we were talking about the perception that Jones was the leader of the band in the beginning, and Keith said actually Ian Stewart was the leader.
Yeah.
Why would that?
Well, Stu, as I understand it, started the band. You know, it was him and I guess Brian. I'm not sure how they met, or you'd have to get that from other sources. But I think somehow they came up with the idea and started putting it together. And then, you know, Keith and Mick, and then I think Bill was one of the last ones to come in. And of course, the story is he had the equipment. He got the job, you know. But yeah, Stu was a founding father of the band, no doubt. And then, of course, you know the story about what was his name, the manager, Andrew Loog Oldham, that kind of inched him out of the band because of his looks, his appearance. Yeah.
That's astonishing.
It's a very weird thing. But, you know, it says a lot about the man that didn't push him away, you know, that he wanted to stay on. And he still stayed on as a musician as well as logistician and confidant. And as you probably know, the band never went on stage until Stu came in and said, "Right, my little shower of shit, you're on."
Really?
That was one of his standard sayings. But yeah, they looked to Stu for a lot of things, and I think each one of them would tell you that when Stu thought a piece was working, you know, when it moved him, they knew it was good.
Interesting.
He was funny. He don't like slow songs. They're boring. and you know, you would be playing a song and they'd throw in a minor chord, you know, instead of a standard 3-chord blues, they'd have a minor in there. Why do you throw in these minors? It makes it so complicated, you know. So he didn't like those kind of things, and I think that's one of the main reasons they had other piano players, because he didn't want to fool with it, you know.
That's funny.
I mean, so that's how Jack Nitzsche and Nicky Hopkins and later, of course, Billy Preston, why those people got involved. And then I suppose to some degree now my role is culmination of all of those people and personalities. I got to be able to play the Nicky Hopkins melodies, which he's wonderful at. I mean, I'm a big fan of Nicky's, and he's influenced me through the years. And of course, I would say the same about Billy Preston. You know, you've got the funk, gospel thing, and and then the boogie woogie of Ian Stewart, and so that's pretty much my role. You know, to feed on all of that and. I like to throw in a little Chuck Leavell when I can.
I got the impression last night you had some of the old songs wired better than Keith or Mick.
It's so funny, isn't it, man? You know, I've been in those rehearsals before when we reach a point in the song and everybody looks my way, like, you know, is this the bridge? Is this the chorus? Is this the verse? It's so funny. I mean, they wrote all of those things, and you would think that they would remember them. But I tell you what, there is such a body of work, as you know. It's, God, incredible to think that anyone could keep all of it in their head. I certainly don't. I have to kind of make references and make notes, but that's part of my role, man, you know, is to be sort of in that capacity, a musical director. I mean, Keith is the musical director as far as I'm concerned. He's the band master, you know, but they do look to me to set tempos, to give cues when certain parts of songs come in, and also to help suggest arrangements. Sometimes a piece might be too long to do on stage, like Wild Horses, and it's a very long song.
Yeah.
So how do we pair it now? Where can we edit it? You know?
Yeah.
And I help in those capacities. And, that's it.
What are the strengths of Jagger and Richards as piano players?
Well, let's face it, they're not really piano players, but they have their own unique ways of expressing on themselves on that instrument. Mick likes, if you've noticed this through the years, he likes country things.
Oh, it is a heavy Bakersfield vibe.
Yeah, and so like Faraway Eyes, Memory Motel, those kind of things he's quite happy to play piano on, and he feels comfortable doing it, and he did on the record.
Yeah.
On the record of Memory Motel, that's Mick playing acoustic and Keith playing electric piano.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow. That's strange.
And Keith, I would say the same thing about. He has a little Floyd Kramer in there, you know, when he sits down at the piano, you hear those little bending notes on the piano. And he also has a great mind for strange chord changes. I mean, like Hoagie Carmichael will creep in there. And
what kind of changes are you talking about?
Well, like one of the songs Keith loves to play when he sits down at the piano is The Nearness of You, which is a Hoagie Carmichael song. And then you look at songs like All About You, and the structure of that song, the chord changes in it. And then one that didn't make it on Voodoo Lounge, which I was really disappointed about because I loved it. It was a ballad, and he just called it Sonny because he wanted Sonny Rollins to play on it. That was the working title. And it has similar type changes, you know, just non-standard, non-blues changes, more in the jazz idiom.
Yeah.
And but you don't think of Keith Richards as a jazz player, do you?
No,
you know?
not at all.
But the structures of the songs, the chord structures, quite often, especially with his ballads, reflect that. It's really interesting.
Keith described himself as a benevolent tyrant when it comes to doing the record. Is that accurate?
Yes. Yeah, it is. I mean, the great thing is they're all passionate about what they do, but they don't take it too seriously. You know, that's the great thing about it, is they're confident about what they do. Mick astounds me with his ability to, you know, do his homework and come up with great lyrics on songs, because largely when we're doing studio work or production or whatever, pre-production for an album, I should say, there's only a phrase, half a chorus, you know,
Oh, really?
a couple of lines in a verse, and he literally mumbles the rest of it. And until one reason he does that is because he's waiting for the song to take shape. He doesn't want to write, you know, a verse here if in the long run that verse doesn't exist.
Right.
He's wasted his time. So he likes to go through the motions until such time the song takes structure.
Yeah.
Then he'll go home, do his homework, and come back with it. And it's fascinating to me. He's brilliant with it.
Were any of these, like, did any of these come in as complete compositions?
No, as far as I recall, none of them did. They were, you know, some more complete than others, but none of them completely written.
Mm-hmm.
None of them.
Where'd the idea of the harpsichord come in?
That was Mick. Mick played the song, and he didn't have all the lyrics down. He had a general structure, but you know, we fooled with that and rearranged it somewhat. And the song, you know, through the years they've had those things. Lady Jane.
Oh yeah.
What else would be
Between the Buttons record.
Ruby Tuesday would
Yeah.
be sort of in that vein. You know, they have that sort of English Baroque, I suppose, music in them that has to come out occasionally, and this was one of those songs. And,
You think the comparisons of the new record to Beggar's Banquet and Exile are fair?
Oh man, I don't think you can compare all day long. I've heard people doing that, and this is 1994, man. You know, this is what they're doing now.
Yeah.
To me, all that doesn't hold a candle. I mean, you know, it is what it is. It's now. This is what it is. You know, through the years, you can always say this song is like that one, and like that one, and like that one, from this album, from that album. You know, of course it does. The Rolling Stones have been four guys together that have played for over 30 years.
Yeah.
You know, so you're going to have similarities crop up. So fine, you know, if you want to say it's like that one, say it. Who cares? But
Yeah.
the bottom line is, what does it sound like now? And that's the important thing.
Do you perceive a difference in working with Daryl versus Bill?
Yeah, there's differences and there's similarities. They're both relatively low-key individuals, you know, but in their own way, outgoing as well. But you know, they're not. Neither one of them jumped around the stage. Neither one of them play lead bass like some people. That's the point. Is that they are both, I think, bass players, true bass players.
Yeah.
You know, they hold down what a bass player should be doing.
Yeah.
And they are both excellent at it and creative at it. Daryl comes from a more schooled background. You know, he's had more versatile situations in his past than Bill did. Bill was virtually the bass player for the Rolling Stones. You know, he did a few sessions.
Couple
through the
solo
years.
records.
Yeah, but you know, Daryl's played with Sting, with Miles Davis, with Madonna, with Peter Gabriel. So he has a diverse background. He's very, very versatile. Adapts easily. If he wanted to take a solo, he could certainly do it and blow everybody away. But of course, this gig doesn't call for that, and he realizes that. And that's, in my opinion, one of the reasons he's got the chair, because he knows what's best for the band.
Probably the same applies to you.
Absolutely. You know, I'm big on the theory of the big picture. You know, I mean, I'd love, if they wanted to throw a few solos at me, fine, if it made sense, but that doesn't really make sense with the Rolling Stones. What does make sense is to blend in to what Stu used to call diamond tiaras. He said, you know, I like hearing those diamond tiaras. And that's the little sparkly bits on the high end of the piano that pop up occasionally in those boogie-woogie songs. And that's really what the gig, not necessarily what it's all about, but that's certainly part of what it's all about. Man, I love the diversity of Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
I've been fortunate in my career to play with a lot of people that, you know, the Allman Brothers Band,
Yeah.
you know, recently with Clapton, and country artists, Indigo Girls recently. I love that, man. You know, if I was just a piano player in a band, I don't think I'd be happy. And the Stones are a lot more versatile than most people realize. You know, they think of them as a rock and roll band. But look at the ballads, you know, look at the medium tempo songs, look at the,
Country.
you know, you mentioned New Faces, the Baroque sort of thing. Look at the country things. It's an incredibly diverse band, and I love that. And I love being able to go from that mood to this mood and over and over. To, you know, I like that.
Who do you take your cues from on the stage?
Well, I think I would be correct in saying that they mostly look to me from taking cues in terms of actual arrangements and ending songs, again, setting the tempos. And, you know, Mick looks to me, and Keith, I think, in terms of the set list. On Steel Wheels, Mick and I got together, and after realizing we had 70 songs, you know, and what we did is, it was his suggestion. He said, "Look, you write your list, I'll write my list, and we'll compare." And
Interesting.
We'll put 30 songs down. I said, "Fine." We did. We compared. Maybe we were 5 songs different, you know.
Really?
So from that, we presented it to the band, and the band had some comments, and then we started, you know, with the running order. And, you know, they like to include me on those things, and I'm very grateful they do.
Can you fill us in on like the types of older songs you're doing?
Well, yeah, you know, the last tour was so strong, and there were so many well-known songs on the set list. The challenge this time is to not repeat ourselves, but find other songs that are interesting, perhaps that the band hasn't done in a long time.
Yeah.
So when we all looked at it, songs like Rocks Off, All Down the Line, Memory Motel, what else?
Heartbreaker.
Heartbreaker, Sweet Virginia, Faraway Eyes, Under My Thumb has come back in. We did that in '82. We may do it this time. Some Girls, which they haven't done in a long time. I don't think they did that since the '70s. So those are the kind of songs that, you know, when I looked at the potential list, that I thought were crowd pleasers, fun to play. I mean, that's another important thing. This band, I mean, let's face it, there's incredible money involved on every level, but the band does it because they love doing this. You know, they wouldn't be out here, it's like Mick said in the thing, what about all the beer you can drink and the girls down front, you know? I mean, we're rock and roll, we're in a rock and roll band. We do it because it's fun. And if we can't, all of us, if we can't get our rocks off, then we're defeating the purpose. So again, the challenge is to find those songs that are fun to play, the crowd will get off on, and that haven't been done in a while.
Yeah.
Luckily, there's a great catalog to choose from.
Keith said he expects 110% from everyone in the band.
Oh man, 120. You know, I mean, I expect no less myself. I wouldn't be here if I felt anybody was going to give less than that.
Is it as demanding as the Allman gig?
Yeah, in a different way. You know, the Allman gig was a little bit more about exploration and musical ideas, you know, and jamming and challenging each other in that way, musical dialogue. This is more song oriented, groove oriented. I don't know what else I can say about it, you know, but they're equally challenging in different ways.
What's the most rewarding aspect of it for you?
Oh man, probably the rehearsals.
Really?
I've said that before, but you know, when you get the show down, even if you have 6, 8, 10 songs that you interchange throughout the course of the tour.
Yeah.
The only time that you get to play all these other songs to try them out is here in this rehearsal time. It's a precious time for me, you know. I mean that, you know. And also just it's the beginning. It's getting to know each other again. It's the creative part of it. You know, once it all gets down, it's pretty much the challenge then becomes how to make it exciting every night. You know, you got to find that within yourself. But I like the rehearsals. That's for me the most fun time, and you know, and it's very rewarding because of the music, man. Because they're such great songwriters, aren't they? You know.
Oh yeah.
I mean, God, just look at the body of work. I mean, they're out of hundreds and hundreds of songs, there's going to be some that you may not want to look at so closely, but gosh, there's certainly, again, hundreds and hundreds that'll last forever. You know, they're great rock and roll songs.
Yeah. I was surprised to learn from Keith how many of them are actually solo compositions versus collaborations between Jagger and Richards.
Well,
it's kind of like a Lennon and McCartney setup.
Yeah, it's very much like that. However, the collaboration comes, I think, largely in as much as I stated to you before, a lot of these songs, say Mick comes in with an idea. He's got a verse down, he's got the chorus. Maybe he's not so sure about the bridge, and he's got a couple of lines.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, Keith is going to come up with a riff, isn't he? I mean,
sure.
He's the riff meister, man. He is the riff meister. And as soon as that happens, it becomes a different song.
Yeah.
And there's the collaboration. And I'll tell you what else Keith is great at is phrases. You got me rocking now. That was his phrase. You know. Then Mick finished it. It's a great collaboration. So that goes on a lot, but of course they have individual ideas that they bring in, and that maybe, you know, it's 70% Keith's, and those things are so hard to put a accurate figure on, aren't they? You know.
Yeah.
And that's why it's beautiful that they've kept that relationship, Jagger-Richards. You know, no matter what, it's always Jagger-Richards, unless they're doing solo thing.
Now, how long are you involved with the Stones this time around?
Well,
how long is the commitment till?
Through the end of the potential tour, which apparently looks like a summer of '95. You know, I've, like I said, I've had the chair for a long time, and this time around, it's even more of a role for me. You know, on the last tour, we had a second keyboardist, Matt Clifford, who did a great job. Matt and I were very good friends. However, this time around, the attitude was, let's have a leaner, meaner, tougher machine, you know. So there's one less keyboardist, there's one less singer, there's one less horn player on this tour. And it has a leaner, meaner, tougher sound. So all the duties are up to me. There's a little bit more weight on my shoulders, but I like a challenge, so I'm ready.
What do you see as the strength of Charlie Watts? He's certainly distinctive from all the drummers you've worked with.
His finesse, his touch, his individuality, you know, he's like no other drummer in the world. I mean, he could play the same beat that any other great drummer or not great drummer could play, and it's no doubt it's Charlie Watts. He just has that amazing ability to make it all his own, you know. And I think also because of the way he holds the groove down, you know, like we were saying about Daryl and about Bill for that matter. It's not, the position is not how great a solo you can play. It's the groove. And so where Keith is the riff meister, Charlie's the groove meister.
Groove guy. That's great. What's on the horizon for you after this? Any plans?
None specific. I mean, this is going to last a long time. Excuse me, but I've been toying with the idea of either a solo project or revitalizing Sea Level.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Did you get most of the original guys back together?
don't know the answer to that. I would certainly get Randall Bramlett. Randall's out with Traffic now.
Yeah.
He's playing the Chris Wood parts. And
Imagine Capricorn would love to get you back.
they probably would if they still exist. Again,
Oh,
I mean, they've had their own difficulties, but
Yeah, that's another volume.
But certainly I would like to do one or the other. And my interest is going a lot towards production. I've produced a few projects through the years, and recently Warren Haynes from the Allman Brothers, his solo record. I really enjoyed doing
Fine record.
Thank you.
I like Warren a lot. He's a cool guy. What a gentleman.
He is. And what a player.
I don't care what anyone says. I think he's as good as Dwayne.
Oh, man. Absolutely.
I love Dwayne. I've never liked a slide player better, but, man, Warren has it. He's got it all.
Yeah, he does.
He does it in standard tune. Yeah. Which makes it even, like, for a guitarist, even more impressive.
Right. I love him to death, man.
He's got a great attitude.
Yeah. So, hopefully, I don't know whether schedules will conflict. I guess a lot depends on what's happening with the Allmans. I've got a part of a song that Warren and I have on the new record, and the record's been doing pretty good. They're touring now, so I think a lot depends on how successful that record is. If they continue to tour behind it, or whether they do individual projects. But I would like to work with Warren on his next record if we can work it out.
Great.
And others. I like the idea at this juncture of my life to slide a little bit into that direction. I like much what I do with the Stones is coordination, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's helping coordinate, helping everybody remember, finding the formula.
Yeah.
A catalyst. I like to think of myself as a catalyst, and so that's I'll be doing that.
Great, man. Well, thanks for the interview.
Okay.
This will be fun.
All right, Jasper.
Pleasure to see you again.
Yeah, great to see you, man.
Look forward to seeing you on tour.
All right.
This concludes my 1994 interview with Chuck Leavell. I hope you've enjoyed it. In the time before and since then, Chuck has worked with a lot of other musicians, including Eric Clapton, David Gilmour, George Harrison, Warren Haynes, and John Mayer. He's also deeply interested in protecting the environment, and he owns a 2,500-acre tree farm near Macon, Georgia. What an accomplished guy. Hey, I invite you to check out my other Rolling Stone interviews done during the June 1994 rehearsals for the Voodoo Lounge tour. You get to hear the impressions of 6 different members of the band talking about each other and what they do together, and I think you'll enjoy it. Before signing off, I want to thank my podcast producer and friend Nick Hunt, who's right here behind the camera, and the good folks at the Southern Folklife Collection down at the University of North Carolina. This podcast is copyright 2024 by Jazz Obrecht, all rights reserved. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you again.